with criminal and civil enforcement measures. Any more questions?
Thank you very much for your testimony. Chair calls Deborah Simmons with William Rickert on deck.
Thank you. Deborah Simmons, SD 24.
And welcome back. We are here at the
Here to
reconvening
discuss
of the Legislative Priorities Committee, and they are taking live testimony. So we're in progress, and we'll go right to them.
Texas. So you could do an umbrella or you could do something specific. If we were to just narrow it and say protect Texas children from sexually inappropriate materials, we would still want the criminal and civil enforcement measures. Enforcement is very, very important. To go back to how this became a problem or we became aware of it, around 2017, I attended an event nationally with other people across the country, and we learned that 43 states had this same problem. Texas is not the only one. In fact, some states have an exception, and there's like 6 or 7. So there's 7 states that don't have this problem, and Tennessee this session actually deleted their educational justification for harmful material to minors. So Tennessee beat us out of the 43. And so I want to talk about Tennessee's measure. What they did was they had a 3-sectioned approach. They actually cleaned up the penal code. They also required Children's Internet Protection Act compliance for every school, and they actually codified it into state law. So it's a federal law, and so they codified it statewide. And that helped with the online stuff that we were seeing that had pornographic materials. And then the third one was requiring more of the LEAs or the school districts to have enforcement or to have consequences. Breach of contract, just termination of, we want to look at lots of different things, but Tennessee had specifically done breach of contract. So again, these came in with the American Law Institute Model Penal Code adoption, which was based on fraudulent research by Dr. Alfred Kinsey. This problem is not just a Texas problem, but we should all be concerned about it, and it should be a very high priority. So after all these years, we have all of these books that have finally risen to the top, and parents are outraged, and we do have solutions that we can work on. We had House Bill 3135 in the 2019 and Senate Bill 977 in 2021 that should have fixed these.
Thank you very much. Sure, yes.
Do you have this in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain a little bit more about this, your second to last stop, Texas cannot allow libraries? Elaborate on that.
So the American the American Library Association actually trains our librarians and our teachers through the Texas Library Association on how to counter parents, and they're calling us book burners. They're asserting all kinds of things, and basically the letters that are written to these school districts to say that if you do not protect this obscenity that is in your library, we will sue you. So there's a lot of threats coming with that, and so basically this Bill of Rights that they've been teaching all of these librarians to defend is not based on good law.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair calls William Rickert.
I'm William Rickert, and I'm from Orange, Texas, number 3 on the list. And I wanted to talk about some things. I'll try to keep it brief. So I have a boy that's a roofer, and he also has diabetes. And he's been in the doctor's offices and pretty close to death. He had the staph before that on his foot. I would have suggested cut his feet off, or because there was 2 women come in, their babies died with that staph, so it was pretty dangerous, I thought. But he got a little bit mad at me about that. So he's on his roofing work yet, and it's bad to have bad feet on that. But he does the best he could, still is, trying to. but he's been with doctors and stuff that's caused some problems. And the complaint I've got, you know, you people are all working hard for what you're doing, but the ones that's taking the offices that are voted for aren't so good. You know, we vote for them and don't get the one we want, and we see some things that's not good. And then some people that have the offices that they're put in. And I love the police, but my boy got first caught when the Houston people that were Republicans were caught with their being checked for all the things and the taxes. He got a $350 penalty. He's never recovered from it. He's had trouble with his taxes. I've had to help him. But now they're selling his house. And I didn't know who, but I went down there to maybe help him get his stuff out of his house. But he's very irritated about it. He's not going to sign the paperwork to get out, so they're makes it longer for them to do. But I wanted to see the sheriff, but the sheriff didn't want to see us. But I find out the sheriff is the one that does the selling of the houses. So we happen to have our Speaker of the House as our representative. And I liked him, and I still do. And we're supposed to like our enemies, you know. And I didn't know what he was, but I'm hearing some things that I don't like. And time's up. But anyways, as I walk away,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to.
the people told me that work for him.
Sir,
That
real
the,
quick, members, a motion to extend the gentleman's time. Any objection?
1 minute.
1 minute. Sir, you have one more minute.
One more minute,
minute
okay.
and wrap up. Thank you,
Well,
sir.
what happened, he got in a hospital, and he couldn't pay it. He wants me to pay. He don't want government to pay him. He wants somebody else, and he likes me to pay him, and I'm pretty poor. I made a vow not to pay people or not work to make more than the taxable. I'm pro-life also. And it causes me a little bit of problem because I help people and I get in the bind. The ones you help don't pay you back because they spend their pennies as they go. And but anyways, in Eddie's, I've had to help him some, and I got a whole lot of money. That's why I'm here. The last week, they helped me out with hundreds of dollar bills and stuff from the group. You can talk to me later if you'd like to. But anyways, he's got, he had two of them that was going to the hospital with troubles, and he was going to the rest home to sleep. And this one had evidently been a murderer. And so he beat up on my son, but my son's pretty strong. So he just held him off, and he hit him, knocked him out, and nothing was done right then. But then it come another, he's laying there sleeping, he picks up his crutch and hit him over the neck. It had some surgery on it for some reason. Maybe the staff, I don't know what it was. But then the rest home showed them both out the door, and he's, you know, pretty well hurt up. And but he got a police officer to take him to the doctor, and the doctor says they need to take and have that checked.
Thank you, sir.
It's just a whole lot, but the...
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, what action is it you're seeking?
What's that?
What action from this committee would you like to see?
I'd
If you
like
keep
us
it
to
in-
try to
Keep
get
it
the...
defined, short.
So they said at his office, when I asked him what on the rules for these things where they got to get their money first when they make a bid for roofing. I had a man here that was a...
Okay, you need to get, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I've got to get you to the point of what it is you're asking for.
I asked him,
Asking
What are
us
you
to
asking
do.
us?
but I want you to know this.
No, I know, we don't
Okay.
have time though. So I'm just trying to get
Sir.
you to ask us Go ahead, please.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Sir, we appreciate you coming and testifying before our committee, and we definitely hope for the best in your outcome, and I thank you so much for your testimony.
And I'd like to see the outcome of things getting better than what
Thank
they're
you,
doing.
sir. Thank you,
And
sir.
you all, one of you want to ask.
Thank you, sir. Chair calls Jamie Haynes.
Hello, I'm Jamie Haynes with Senate District 31. I want to address the obscenity exemption plank, and I am with Melissa and Debbie that already spoke, one or two people before, but I'll go ahead and read that again. But protect Texas children from sexually inappropriate material, violation of privacy, and usurping of parental rights with, this is the important part, criminal and civil enforcement measures. So in fall of 2020, my 14-year-old son received an incredibly inappropriate book at Canyon High. It launched me in my life in a whole new direction. I launched a website called Texans Wake Up and started paying attention to everything the school was doing. I filed 7 different grievances with our district. I filed TEA complaints. The point I really want to drive home is the with criminal and civil enforcement measures. We cannot have the school police themselves. It is not working at all. And so we have to move the enforcement into a different arena. And then the second thing is as the other ladies drove home as well, is someone has said that sexually inappropriate is the term we want to use versus obscene, because obscene falls into a whole different category with our penal codes. Just a point I want to bring up. And then I think the usurping of parental rights can cover so many things, as she brought up. You know, we have transgenderism in our suicide program in conservative Little Canyon, Texas, outside of Amarillo, as well as a CSE or SRR sex ed program. They have gotten rid of that now, and we're looking at a new one. And then the social emotional learning. When we teach our children mental health elements that are aligned with Eastern religion, philosophies, and ideas, that violates my parental rights, where I tell my child to turn to God and Jesus and pray and not think positive and be mindful. That is violating my parental rights. So I feel like this could cover a lot of different things. Thank you so much for your time and all your work.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Thank you very much.
Chairman, it's over here.
Oh, there you are.
Joseph Villarreal, he's here now. If you called him, he thought you called him.
Very good. Thank you. The chair calls Joseph Villarreal.
Thank you. I wanted to thank y'all for y'all's time. My name is Joseph Villarreal. I'm from Senate District 9. I'm from Precinct 3725. I was originally going to come up and talk about 50-50 shared parenting. It sounds like y'all have gotten, it's been beaten to death a little bit. I think it's a little bit interesting because y'all are pushing for, there's an issue with pushing the priorities for Democratic chairs on committees. I was with 150 parents in Austin last year to give testimony for House Bill 803. There was fathers, there was mothers, and what we were up against was a committee, the JJFI committee, ran by Neave, that is a Democrat. So I'm with you, right? I heard that some people were saying that they know fathers that don't want to be actively involved. I'm one of hundreds, if not thousands, of mothers and fathers that are stepping up to the plate. I haven't seen my son in almost 2 years. Tarrant County is one of the worst counties in the state of Texas, and all it took was for my ex-wife to say that she was concerned about the safety and well-being of my son. We didn't have any problems until I chose to move on with my life. Most people say get a lawyer. Well, what happens whenever you don't have money for a lawyer? It becomes a court of equity. So if you don't have money, you're going to be reduced to a visitor. We have the money. We have the numbers from the Office of the Attorney Generals. 90% of the time, a father gets reduced to a visitor. If the state of Texas cares about the Republican Party in the Republic of Texas, this committee will eventually move shared parenting up to the top. We have mothers and fathers actively wanting to be involved, and we are they're mandated to be absent from their children's lives because of the state. We just barely had a father in Tarrant County whose son has cancer, and his rights were being denied. His rights from access were being denied to visit his son that has a 2 to 4 week lifetime span.
Time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Chair calls Sebastian Castro. Sebastian Castro. And go back up to Beverly Roberts. Chair calls Beverly Roberts. Or Chair calls Gail Stannert. Chair calls Suzanne Salas. Chair calls Kristen Plusance. Chair calls Jennifer Eckert. The chair calls Cindy Sparacino. Chair calls Erica Hatfield.
You guys are so sweet. You might be surprised, though. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the colleagues of the committee. My name is Erica Hatfield. I'm from Senate District 2. I'm proud to say that my senator is Senator Bob Hall. I live in Rockwall County, and I'm here to talk about closed primaries. Recently, we had a runoff primary. One of the candidates for the county judge boasted in front of the polling place that he had over 1,000 Democrats in his pocket. And so what I want to say here is if you go to the GOP data center and you select the 2022 Republican primary and then you select hard Democrats, you're going to find, hold on, you're going to find 64,238 hard Democrats voted in the 2022 Texas Republican primary. You're also going to find that 41,718 weak Democrats voted in the 2022 Texas Republican primary. I found this news ad, and it says, the news ad says, "To our fellow Democrats, Texas has an open primary. We ask you to vote in the Republican primary to keep County Judge Curtis Evans," so this is a different county, "Curtis Evans to keep quality experience and positive leadership for Jeff Davis County," which is El Paso area. And it was signed by a group of people. So I'm here to say I would like to see closed primaries fall under election integrity. It's so important. If we want to keep senators like Senator Hall and representatives like Brian Slayton, we've got to have closed primaries. If you want to have your legislative priorities taken care of, we've got to have closed primaries. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Chairman, Gail Stannert.
The chair calls Gail Stannert.
Okay, I'm Gail Stannart. I am on the SREC from SD7, and 2 years ago I sat in that seat where Sean Cheban, one of your distinguished colleagues, is sitting. And so I've participated in what you've done. My background is that for 3 sessions in the legislature, under the auspices of the SREC and the Legislative Priorities Committee, I have chaired the subcommittee for ending taxpayer or banning taxpayer-funded lobbying. You have consistently, and the groups before you, have put that on the list, and the people have voted for it. It's not an exciting, emotion-grabbing issue. But I will tell you that it affects every issue, whether in this body or in the platform that we want to get passed, because the opposition is well-funded, and they are well-funded by your tax-paying dollars. And so I would ask you to consider it carefully. I know that you're going to be inundated with some things that are just so emotionally and logically important. And I understand your dilemma in narrowing it down to 15. But we are going to come up with a campaign for the legislature that is going to be a grabber, and it will be effective, but you're going to have faith. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. The chair calls Sheena Rodriguez. Sheena Rodriguez. The chair calls Craig Liccardi. Craig Liccardi. The chair calls Elise Eaton. Elise Eaton.
Bless you.
Chair calls Sarai Demeen. Sarai Demeen.
I saw her in the hall. It's on silent.
Turn it up. That's good.
Hey.
The chair calls, I believe it's Dan Belfield. Okay, good. Chair calls Art Hernandez. All right.
Yay, finally. Well, thank you. My name's Art Hernandez, SD 17, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the American family, my family. And one thing that we all have in common here, and one of the reasons y'all were here till 11 p.m. last night, we do it because of our families, our children, is why we're here. And we're here to protect them. We fight to abolish abortion because we want to stop the killing of unborn Americans and put an end to the greatest genocide, or one of the greatest genocides in human history that has killed over 39 million Americans since 1973. We fight to end property taxes because adjusted for inflation, home values are up 300%, but our wages are only up 70%. We fight for school choice because schools are no longer safe for our children. I ask you, then when considering our priorities, we choose the ones that protect the American family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your articulate testimony. The chair calls Kay Burkhalter. Kay Burkhalter. The chair calls Jennifer Fleck. Jennifer Fleck. The chair calls Dale Inman. Dale Inman. The chair calls Art Brown.
Thank you for your time. My name is Art Brown. I'm Senate District 19. A year and a half ago, I got tired of what I was hearing on the news and not believing my ears and not trusting what we call media. So I started searching to God what is important and guide me and lead me. And I ask Him for each and every one of you that He will bless your spirit to open your eyes and your ears and to listen to Him instead of what we look to make sense in this world, because this world doesn't make sense anymore. I became a precinct chair after listening to Real America's Voice. I believe the Spirit led me to that broadcast and hearing I'm not alone. There's many people that are upset and Dan Schultz talked about becoming a precinct chair. So I became a precinct chair, and I put on there that I talk about Convention of States. But I wanted to let each and every one of you know that I'm not really standing up for Convention of States as much as Convention of States is standing up for me. And I was skeptical, like many that we've heard before, Mark Meckler and Mark Levin, whether Convention of States was going to work. And then I talked to somebody about Texit, and I would like Convention of States to work before we get that drastic that we have to separate from a union. A friend of mine handed me a book called Miracle in Philadelphia. The summer of 1787, delegates were sent to the Independence Hall. And this is annotated. I don't understand some of the rebuttals I've heard from people that says we'd never had a convention. They didn't call it a convention when they were having it. They called it one after. But delegates were sent from 13 colonies, and they made a difference. Now, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the chair calls John Parks. Bianca Garcia is on deck.
My name is John Parks. I am in SD2, deep behind enemy lines in Dallas, the People's Republic of Dallas County. I entered a resolution in. I've had four, possibly one fifth person die that I know of who had corona. About 1 million people have had that. I put in a resolution to investigate and prosecute treason and mass murder. It was passed. Somehow it did not, and it passed the SD convention. No one dissented and said nay on that. It should have gotten here. Somehow it did not get here. I've spoken to the person who is going to go find out what's going on with that. But Fauci and the National Institutes of Health and National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and the Department of Defense provided funding through Dr. Ralph Barrick and Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is a Chinese research facility utilized by the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China, which is run by the Communist Party of China, Chinese Communist Party. This resulted in the building of SARS-CoV-2, a virus using gain-of-function research, which added new capabilities, enhanced transmissibility, and increased lethality, which were added, which effectively made a low-grade biological weapon. The Communist Party of China has been for years using a doctrine of warfare against the people of the United States called unrestricted warfare, by which novel methods of destroying the economy and murdering people of America has been in effect, yet they don't fire shots, so it's not a kinetic war. It was allowed and intended by the Communist Party of China to be spread to the United States, causing close to around 1 million deaths, maybe more. The Constitution in Article 3, Section 3, Clause 1 states that treason against the United States shall consist in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on the confession of an open court. There are all kinds of accounting that has demonstrated that funding came through the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and other other agencies, including the DOD, to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, that resulted in the building of this bioweapon that's killed 1 million people. Consequently, be it resolved that the State Attorney General of Texas and other law enforcement agencies, district attorneys, grand juries, investigate those connected with these crimes, and that the courts of Texas prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law concerning treason and mass murder.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony.
Mr. Chairman.
I have copies if anyone wants them.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Craig Liccardi is in the room now.
Excellent, thank you. The chair calls Craig Liccardi. Bianca Garcia is on deck.
Good evening. My name is Craig Liccardi. I'm from Senate District 1, and I've been in rules all day, so I'll make this brief. For 20 years, we've had control in Austin. 20 years, we've had a Republican majority in the House, the Senate, and the governor's house. And 20 years, 10 sessions, we keep begging and begging and begging for our legislative priorities. I know we've only had legislative priorities for about 10 years, but getting our stuff passed is so critical. There's a reason why most of our platform, and our platform is pretty big, there's a reason why most of it's still on copy paper instead of in the law books. And I think that the reasons behind that are some of the things that need to be addressed as a legislative priority. Our legislators need to be held accountable, and our executive branch needs to be held accountable. So executive overreach that we saw the last couple of years, that needs to be a priority for the legislature to address. There's been numerous propositions and proposals of how many days an emergency can last, and how quickly something needs to be called, a committee needs to be called, or how quickly a special session needs to be called. Those details, we can work those out here in your committee. But executive overreach is critical to deal with. Even more important than that is election integrity. I've been an election judge for several years. I've seen felony election fraud happen right under my nose by a Democrat co-judge. It happens. It's all over the place. I've seen it. I've seen people literally take their phone and change the votes in a database from the vote totals literally flip from candidate A and B. Their numbers just completely flipped. That can be done with the electronic voting systems. I'm in favor of actually going back to paper, where you got a Democrat and a Republican, and you count the paper ballots at the precinct, and everybody, there's a spotlight on everything, and nobody can pull any funny business. That's ideal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony.
There's several more, but obviously you've heard some others, so thank you.
The chair calls Bianca Garcia. Terry Hall is on deck.
Thank you, and that's Bianca Gracia, just for correction. I'm representing Latinos for America First. I'm the president, representing over 15,000 active members in Texas alone. Delegate out of SD 11 Precinct 352. As a Hispanic organization, our communities are faith-driven, freedom-loving, and believe in protecting life. This party has set standards and a platform with God at the forefront. It is not acceptable to compromise our principles as Latinos leaving the Democrat plantation. They are not coming over so that this party can compromise our values. You will either stand with God or against him. This is where we stand on legislative priorities. 1, abolish abortion. The heartbeat bill was not an abolishment of abortion. The Bible states, thou shalt not murder. This bill was nothing to be happy about or even applaud from our most supposedly conservative elected officials. Number 2, religious freedom. The church should have never had to seek the Supreme Court to keep their churches open during the pandemic. We are against government overreach and advocate against emergency powers given to the elected officials. 3, we believe in medical freedoms. 4, we believe in parental rights. 5, national security, border security. We believe in protecting the nation, our state, and our homes. Even Nehemiah rebuilt the wall. Open borders has led to the sale of humans into modern-day slavery, the raping of innocent women and children, and an increase in fentanyl that was confiscated in one county alone that could kill the entire nation. Texas should take a stronger stance on border security and close the border to stop the invasion instead of giving us theatrics and optics from our governor, lieutenant governor, and Texas attorney general. This invasion is hurting our communities. We must declare the cartel as a domestic terrorist organization, because in John 10, thieves and robbers come in another way. We believe in finishing the wall, believe in deportation. We do not believe in amnesty or pathway to citizenship. Number 6, we are not satisfied with our elected officials watering down election integrity bills reducing the penalty from felony to misdemeanor. Our Hispanic communities have been victims of election fraud for decades. We have affidavits from many Hispanics regarding the election fraud they witnessed during the 2020 election. Our elected officials themselves lie about where they live and buy elections, and if you all think that our party isn't rigging elections, then God have mercy on you. We want one-day voting ballots, and that's it. This nation no longer has elections. We have selections. What will you do?
She said,
Thank you for that
yes.
testimony with
gusto. Oh my
gusto.
goodness, now what I'm going to do is all this pressure. Okay, so my name is Terry Hall, and I'm with SD24, and I am the founder and director of Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom, or Texas TURF, and Texans for Toll-Free Highways. And I normally would come before you begging you to make our 2 legislative priorities one of our top priorities for Legislative Priorities Committee. But there's a reason why I can't do that today. Because we have a Democrat as the Transportation Committee Chair in the House. And this continues to happen session after session. Doesn't matter what we say our priorities are, folks, as long as we have Democrats as committee chairs. So I'm here to ask you to make this a priority. Please make this a priority, because I can guarantee you it's going to be right up there with election integrity when we do the vote. Because there's nothing I've seen galvanize Republicans in this state like the issue of Democrats as committee chairs. So I wanted to actually bring up one more thing with you. I happen to have 2 collegiate athletes in my house that are females. And we have some unfinished business, folks, when it comes to allowing men to compete against women at the higher education collegiate level, and really in professional sports as well. We only took care of it for high school, K-12. Well, what about all these collegiate athletes? Their scholarships depend on this. So we have failed these ladies, and my daughter's included. We need to make sure we protect women from having to compete against biological males. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa Beckmeyer, are there any other sign-ups? We're done with that list. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I've ascertained 2 things. First, I can't estimate time, and second, I've ascertained the weighted rankings of all our priorities on the survey.
Very good. I'm going to close signups. We have 4 people left that are on here, and then that will end our public testimony for the day, and then we'll get back to the committee of the whole and discuss our final results of our survey. The chair calls Kevin Witt. Tracy, the chair calls Tracy Shanian. Chair calls Sandra Witten. Winter. Witter.
She's here.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Hi, y'all. My name is Sandra Witten. I am representing SD 21. I live in Laredo. I am a former candidate for Congress in Congressional District 28. I wanted to talk today about closing the primaries. This is so important that we close the primaries, especially when we look at what's happening on a whole. One of the things that we saw in the 2020 election cycle is that President Donald Trump got an overwhelming amount of votes in Webb County, Laredo, Texas specifically. In fact, in the primaries, he was almost a laughingstock. He only got 2,700 votes. On Election Day in November, that number over tripled. It exploded. It had closer to 27,000 votes, the most number of Republican votes ever seen in Webb County's history. Why do I bring that up? Because now we had a contested race in Congressional District 28. One of the things that we saw is group text messages from where the Democrats did not want certain Republicans to win, not just in my race specifically, but up and down the board. We had so many contested races. You guys saw the number of runoffs that we've had. This has never happened in the history of District 28, that we had a runoff, let alone a runoff in a Republican race. Now, that sounds like it should be exciting, except for when you realize that there was a lot of paid for votes on the hands of the Democrats. When you find out that you had a 17-year-old election judge, and it was called upon the state to act, and the state refused to do something about it because, well, quote, you win some, you lose some. That's not acceptable. As Republicans, we're expected to hold a higher accountability. In Virginia, my home state that I grew up in, I had to register as a Republican voter. Now, what this does is this eliminates the whim voting. When you go in to vote on election day or during your open voting time, you have to vote as a Republican or you have to vote as a Democrat. Why don't we want that kind of accountability in Texas? This is going to prevent people texting and doing these mass texts going, hey, we need somebody to come over here and vote because our guy is losing. Hey, as long as you're a registered voter, you can come and vote. That is not acceptable. That is toxic. That is toxic for the state of Texas, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. We've got to close the primaries in Texas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The chair calls Jeff Morgan.
Jeffrey Morgan from Senate District 2. Thank you so much. I didn't realize you were still coming on tonight, or I would have dressed a little bit more appropriately. But I wanted to talk about just one quick issue here. And this came out in February of 2021 in an article called The Wed Vote Red. And it talked about the single most important factor in whether a person voted Democrat or Republican was their marital status. So, for example, married men voted for Donald Trump 57 to 42%, that's a plus 14. Married women, 52 to 47%, that's a plus 5. When you look at single men, they voted for Biden 46 to 52%, negative 6 Republican. Single women, 37 to 62%, they voted for Biden. That's negative 25%. Now, when I was here, I spoke about the no-fault divorce issue. I was actually surprised to hear that the parental equality did not make it on the legislative priorities, and I think that's a mistake. Because what we are doing in our child support system right now, 1.5 million children, 6% of them, and I don't even like this whole system here, but the majority of them are being raised in which with a primary single mother, and I have nothing against single mothers or anything, but we are creating a pipeline of Democrats. We're concerned about people coming across the border voting Democrat. We're creating our own here in Texas. And as grandparents, if you don't look at this equal shared parenting, you may end up never being able to see your grandchildren because they take retribution against one of the parents. I think this is a very important issue. It's not my biggest issue, but the best thing, if you do have divorce, parental equality, they have over 60 studies that are saying that this shared parenting is the most important thing to kind of replicate two parents living in the same house. It is a shame on us if we are monetizing our children and are more concerned about the money in child support than what's good for our children and what's good for our party. You are creating the demise of your party if you don't look at this. I think it's more of a Marxist feminist doctrine and not a true Republican ideology. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Members, that clears the list of public testimony. I want to thank everybody who has given testimony, both those that are present and those who have come before, for standing before us. I'm not saying we're not having any more public testimony at all for the rest of the time, but we're going to go ahead and break into our committee of the whole to discuss first and foremost the results of our survey, and then we'll continue with our discussion leading up to a final vote of 15. So with that, Shelley, would you like to share the results? If you have in visual, we can put them up as
I've
well.
actually copied the spreadsheets into the working document. If you can pull that up, please. Now, while that's coming up, I'll just explain what I did. I took all of the raw Responses, somebody listed banned taxpayer-funded lobbying first. We've got, and that's the only person who ranked that first. Then we've got a record of 1 vote for first place for banned taxpayer-funded lobbying. So even though I thought I wasn't going to have to do this earlier, I went ahead and weighted all of them so that we could rank all 32 in order based on weighting. So a first place choice had a weighting of 15 out of 15 priorities. A 15th place choice got a weighting of 1, linear. And then I simply ordered everything by the weighted average. There is a slight margin of error here because I could not find a good way to programmatically convert the raw responses to results, but I did a lot of checking and double checking, so I'm confident that my margin of error is within 2%.
Where is it?
To the far right, because I'm far right.
Legislative priorities.
Legislative priorities preliminary rankings.
Okay. Turn on the, somebody needs to turn on the.
Yeah. Do we want to display it or just work from the?
Yeah.
Turn on the
Can someone turn on the projector? Is the
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and go to this tab.
Legislative priorities preliminary rankings.
Sorry.
In fact, I'm going to reorder these real quick.
It's a
Okay.
spreadsheet, the Google spreadsheet.
So I also put the raw form responses in a tab on the spreadsheet just for auditability.
It's a working document, so I'm working from the one that was sent on June 13th by Tom Novus. Didn't turn. Scroll down to June 13th, if you can. Oh, no, you gotta go to another page.
What are these little things? Jane? I don't get this.
You might need to go back a bit. Tom Lewis, did I find it? You could also do a search. Do this.
All right. I think that's it'll display better in a minute or two, but this gives us enough. So on the left-hand side is the number. That's the left-hand column. Just rank priority 1, priority 2, et cetera. Then is the name of the priority. And then in columns C through Q are the total of votes for that rank for that priority. And then in the far right column, R, that's the actual weighted score. So take election integrity, for instance. That's the first one. 8 votes for number 1. That's 8 times 15 to give it the weighted average for the number 1 spot, and so on down the line for a total weighted score of 320. Now, this doesn't have to pigeonhole us into specific ranking, but this will help guide our discussion. This will help visualize where everybody's at. It's probably no surprise that things such as election integrity and protect the electric grid are up at the top. So I have already sorted these based on the weighted rank. So just going down the line in the current order, first we have election integrity, then protect the electric grid, then eliminate property tax, then abolish abortion, then gender identity and modification. Number 6, ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. 7, eliminate obscenity exemption. 8, medical freedom. 9, border security. 10, ban Democrat committee chairs. 11, curtail emergency powers. 12, defend Second Amendment. 13, sex education. 14, eliminate sunset on Convention of States. 15, close primaries. I'm going to keep going for a few here because we did not get a clean delineation between 15 and 16. There wasn't a massive drop-off. So 16 is school choice for all. 17, parental rights. 18, save women's sports. 19, repeal the 10-day rule. And I'm going to stop at number 20, medical tyranny. But if anybody's curious on the rest of the list, it's all up there in black, white, and green.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Are there any questions about how this was laid out or ordered? Okay. Yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your work on that particular document. Folks, you can see we have here, we'll just say the top 20 as you read through. And I'd like to refer, if you would, back to the original, when we earlier started and took the top 2 from each of the subcommittees. And I'd like to cross-reference to see how those 10 that we initially did rank amongst these after the survey.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to do that offline? It should only take another few hours.
We have electric grid, eliminate property tax. I'll just tell you which ones they were. And then repeal 10-day rule. Obscenity exemption. Election integrity. Second Amendment. Medical freedom. Freedom.
Border security and sex education.
Gender modification. Abolition of abortion and border security. Okay. Yep, with the exception of the 10-day rule. Everything else stayed in the top 10, and then also defending Second Amendment went to 12.
Well, so the committee has come up with their top 10 or top 15, and they've ranked them. So that's the major issue for tonight, and the committee will may do a little bit of work to kind of streamline the wording and stuff, but that's ultimately what I wanted to see. And tomorrow morning we'll have the chairman of the committee here to talk about this list and other committee business. So with that, I'm going to close out tonight. I hope that this has been helpful, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So please, if you can, be with me tomorrow, and we will see you then. Have a great night. Blessings to you all.